Hi, and welcome to Power of the Network. I'm your host, Tim Locker, Vice President of Broadband here at CBM. Once again this week, I get to introduce myself to one of our manufacturers. We've had nVent Hoffman on the show several times before, but today we've got our guest, Bob Kalivoda. Bob is the VP of Sales for North America for nVent, and his time is super valuable, and I know he's got a lot to do, so I appreciate him spending his time with us here this morning, and we're going to get right into that conversation with Bob. We're going to talk nVent, we're going to talk culture, we're going to talk sales, and we're going to talk football. So let's see what Bob's got to say. Bob, thanks for joining us today. nVent's been a great partner of ours at CBM for so many years, and we know you're a busy guy and got a lot to do, and I just can't thank you enough for joining us on the show today. So.
Well, thanks for having me.
First of all, nice to meet you. You and I have not met, so that's one of my favorite things about doing this is, just being able to meet new people. I came up through our communication group, and now it's just such a pleasure to be able to meet different people that we've worked with over the years, and so that's great for me. So thank you. Looking back through, some of your history, you've obviously been in the workforce here for a long time, and you started in sales. I'm kind of selfishly asking this question because I'm on a similar boat. I came up through the ranks in the sales, and now I'm, fairly new into a leadership role, if you will, into the company. And it's an interesting transition. So I wanted to get your take on that transition from what you did for all those years selling, and then jumping into that leadership role. If you've got some some advice or some just some of the challenges and those kinds of things with making that transition.
Yeah, no, I loved being a salesperson. Still, I'm selling.
Yeah,
You
it's
never
hard to
stop selling.
you can't take it out of you.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that love to know how things are built. And when you're out in sales, you get a chance to see that with multiple different customers, multiple different industries. That's kind of what always interests me. And then as my sales career grew, I found myself being more of a partner to my customers, which I loved being because that's where,
Yeah,
hey, call me in when you need something and I can help you where I can help you. But then I started seeing that this is a great opportunity for me to share that with some of the other salespeople that are coming into the industry that are new, that we could potentially uh, kind of, I don't want to be a mentor. I don't know. I don't know if I'm really a mentor, but really kind of share my experiences of how to create that relationship. And you really can't do it as a sales guy. And as I got to the sales manager position, I really found that was an avenue for that. And then as I became a sales manager, I saw that opportunity to widen from a territory to a region, now globally. So I'm
yeah,
very excited about that.
yeah. That's awesome. I understand. In the past, you were also a football coach.
I was. I coached my son when he started in 8 years old all the way through to high school. And it was a great experience. You teach a lot of things in football to be safe, to be aggressive, and it kind of equates to how you coach your team in a sales team, right? You want
Yeah,
them to be safe, do the right things, working with integrity. You want them to be aggressive.
yeah. I so I was we had a Pee Wee league start when my son was young, and I think it was third. I think they did a third and fourth grade combined team, and then there was a fifth grade team and a sixth grade team, and it was tackle football, and they when it was brand new, obviously a lot of parents were concerned about injuries and being tackled. And it turned out, from my experience, third and fourth grade didn't seem to be a problem. They're really not big enough to hurt each other, at that
No.
point. Fifth grade maybe a little worse, and then sixth grade you started to see some disparity between the kids at that point. And I remember, my son, he was a decent sized kid, and he was a fullback, in sixth grade. But we come up against a team that was much bigger, and I can remember him just taking a beating. But what another thing that stuck out to me is I remember, I don't remember if it was a third grader or fourth grader, but he looked at I was saying something, and he looked at me and he said, "Coach, what's a touchdown?" And it kind of opened my eyes a little bit, and I'm like, these they don't know. And I think,
No.
how many times do we take for granted that somebody knows something, and they don't? So that really opened my eyes, from a coaching perspective, to like, you kind of have to start with the basics and build up. Did you have any similar?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the favorite stories I have is we were coaching the younger kids, about your son's age, third and fourth grade. And, you expect them to understand the football language, technology. And then you look down and they're in a three-point stands and their underwear sticking out and they got their Power Ranger underwear.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta back this up again. This has got to be a little bit more rudimentary.
Yeah. So how do you equate that into a sales coaching? Um, do you think we still make that same mistake in leadership, assuming people know? Do we have to kind of dumb it
Absolutely.
down a little?
Everybody's got a different skill.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a strong skill. Everybody's got something they need to improve on. And in the sales cycle, it's not one size fits all. And when I talk to one customer, I'm talking to an engineering group. The other customer, I might be talking to a procurement team. Very different in how we engage, talk. Things that are important to one are not going to be important to another. And making sure that you have that rounded view to make sure you're building that relationship with the customer. So yeah, it's different for everybody.
Yeah. Have you, throughout your sales career, did you do much in terms of sales training or courses?
Yeah,
Do you follow a process now?
we have our own internal process we developed at nVent Hoffman, but through the other programs, all your big name programs still use blue sheets and hot sheets. Um, I'm in constant reading books on sales process. I,
Yeah.
I like them all. There's a little bit you can take from each, but there's a million out there. I've gone through, God, over 20 different courses, but I really like our program that we have set up in nVent Hoffman right now because it grabs pieces of all
Yeah.
different programs that I've been through.
Walk me through the process a little bit. I'm always interested to hear how others do it.
Walk through the process
Yeah.
from
What
cold
is?
calling all the way to order.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we always focus on is really kind of finding the timing of the customer. Is the customer your first call going to be an introduction call? Do they have a demand or need? Are you creating that demand or need? Or are you just addressing I'm interested in what you do? So
Yeah.
once you kind of strategize and figure out where the customer's timing is, then you can kind of structure your strategy for how to move forward with that account. What's the next step? Is that talking about a specific drawing set and really getting into a project they have on their table right now? Or just educating them what do we do? Do people know what Hoffman does?
Yeah.
Believe it or not, there's probably people out there that don't know what Hoffman does.
Well, I think
So
certainly folks in the industry do, but the general public probably doesn't. They probably have no
yeah,
idea how many things you guys affect.
absolutely. And more importantly, what do we offer? Hoffman is kind of tied to six-sided metal boxes, but really, what do we offer? We offer full turnkey automation products. We offer cooling products. We're starting to get into more of the, how do we do mod services out in the field? How do we service the customer better, more effectively? So those are all kinds of that next step where you're in that discovery phase. Is how do you figure out what that customer wants? What's really going to be your next step? Then once you figure that out, you get into a really what we call collaborate phase, where you get a collaboration of let's sit down with the customer, make sure that I'm understanding his need and his problem, and my solution hits all of his boxes. And then from there, we move into a quote stage. And then a quote stage is really kind of confirming that everything that you've done is right, and then close. And that could be as long as the front end process.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
now your engineering group, yeah, that's great, I want it. But now you got to go talk to procurement to get that order placed. So now
Yeah.
you're
And
in
that
different
sales
reset
process.
almost.
Yeah. That sales process is obviously different for, everybody in every market. But I like what you said there about the quoting being towards the end. CBM, we've invested in some sales training over the years for our folks as well. And going through that, I think it's great to kind of go through that later, after you've had a little bit of experience, because it kind of exposes your flaws a little bit. And so oftentimes,
Absolutely.
we just want to run right in and quote something, but it doesn't matter what we quote. We kind of get the cart in front of the horse, if you will.
Absolutely.
So the timing, that's kind of why I wanted you to walk through the steps, because the timing and those steps are important. If you don't check the box on one of those steps, then you're going to struggle later when you're trying to close the deal.
Yeah. I mean, if you really truly don't understand what the customer is asking for, what his pain points are, how do you effectively quote anything?
Yeah. Yeah. You're just throwing darts. Just
Throwing a number
darts.
on the street.
Yeah. So we've had a few folks from nVent on the show already. We had Pat Stepanek and John Redeman both recently, and they talk a lot, about the automation and the automation industry. Explain a little bit how nVent is set up to help folks with that automation process, and why does it matter? What's the differentiator?
So are you talking the automation of our products being used in automation, or some of the solutions we have to automate people's process?
So the solutions that help our customers in their automation.
Okay.
Yes.
And most of our products are what we call ourselves equipment protection for just that. Our products protect control systems that are automating your equipment or your plant. So when you look at the Hoffman product, it's really a protection layer to that PLC or computer or drive or whatever dedicated board you might have that is going to be doing the actual control and automation of your equipment. And then, of course, we have the auxiliaries that have the cooling products. In the datacom world, that's a very big issue when you put a bunch of servers together and they want to cool them. And then, of course, in the industrial world, you put a PLC and a drive together. That's not a good mix without some kind of cooling solution. So we try to offer the customer not just a product that says, hey, this is going to house your control, but this is also how we can help you maintain that system and keep that system up and running and protect it from any downtime, which is the evil word, and really make sure you're up to speed on what products are going to keep you alive and move your business forward.
I was reading one of your LinkedIn posts as I was preparing for this, and you'd mentioned sustainability, and it needs to be discussed in the right way. What does sustainability mean to you, and how does that relate to nVent?
Sustainability is widely used term that I think everybody interprets a little differently.
Sure.
And when I look at sustainability, is how is our business set up? How do we approach the market? And are we consistent in that message? And I think that's one of the things our customers rely on us for many years is, hey, I know to go to Hoffman, I'm going to get a quality product. And that's a sustainable thing. I go to Hoffman, their local distribution has product available. It's not a flash in the pan. That's sustainable. And how do we really create those partnerships with the customers that they view us as an engineering resource, and that's more of a sustainability feature as well. I want this partnership. I want to be the first in line. You think of an automation.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's go back a little bit to relationships. Talk about the importance of relationships, and we have some younger folks in our sales force now, and what would you say to a new sales guy? What's the best way? How do you build those relationships?
Yeah, I think there's a lost art there in some of the younger people coming into the industry, and I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. But I think a lot of people rely on electronic tools for their communication.
Yeah.
And I'm a big proponent of pick up the phone and
Make
get
a
a voice
call.
on the other
Yeah.
end,
Yeah.
or go make a call,
Yeah.
knock on the door, show your pretty face, and make sure they understand there's a person behind this company that's going to work for you. And I think that would be the message I would give any young people coming in this industry is if you really want to differentiate yourself, build those relationships personally, not through email, not through text messages. Those are communication mediums you can use after that
Yeah.
relationship is established. But you really need to be out in front and build that trust, build that view in your customer's eyes that you're there as a person to help their problems.
How do you navigate the gatekeepers?
Yeah. Depending on which ones you talk about, right? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of different gatekeepers in every account, starting from the receptionist,
Those
right?
are usually the strongest.
Yeah, and again, those are when you go out walk into an account, you're selling. You're selling from the minute you walk in the front door. You're selling to the receptionist. You're selling to the people that are the assistants, to the people that you want to meet with. You're selling with the contact that you've got your meeting set up for. So if you can't get through that, the gatekeepers will stop you. They're
Yeah.
very well trained in sniffing through that stuff and saying, no, there's no need for you to be here to waste time for my people, right?
Yeah, for sure. I had one years ago. This has been even prior to starting here. It's been probably 20 years ago. But I was selling construction equipment, trenchers and drills and those kinds of things. And I was calling on a little phone company, and I mean, I stopped 6 or 7, 8 times. I don't know. It was a bunch of times. I could never get in to see the manager. And finally, it finally dawned on me. Well, they're just not letting me in. He's not here is not always true. So the next time I went to call on this guy, I actually turned the street. I didn't go by the office. The office is on Main Street. So I went around the block, kind of a couple of blocks down so they didn't see me, and parked around the corner. And when I walked up to the building, I literally ducked down and scaled under the window. And when I popped into the office, the manager was standing right there. His eyes were
There you
big.
go.
And I said, I got you. And he's
There you
like,
go.
all right, we'll go talk. And, the funny thing is, finally get in to meet the guy, and we sit down and talk, and we have, plenty of things in common, plenty of things that I can help him with. But it just took that grind to get through the front desk.
Oh, yeah. I have a favorite story. I talked to one of my salespeople in Iowa. We're out on joint calls, and we're going to this one account. We stop at this ice cream store. It's 90 something degrees out. He gets a strawberry ice cream cone. We go into the receptionist. He gives her the strawberry ice cream. She loves him. We have a meeting with some individual, and this receptionist actually goes, "Hey, you need to also see these 3 other guys while you're here
Yeah.
because they've got some issues that you can talk to you about." So
Yeah,
at
that's
the
awesome.
gatekeeper.
It seems, I think the more experience you get, the easier it gets, obviously. But here, even just a couple of weeks ago, I stopped into a customer, and this lady looked at me, and I could just see it in her eyes. And before she said anything, I said, "You're the gatekeeper, aren't you?" And she smiled, and she said, "Who do you want to see?"
Exactly.
And I had an appointment and everything, but it was just interesting because we kind of had that connection. I'm like, I know what you're up to, and she knew what I was up to. Uh, but sometimes you just call a spade a spade. So
Yep, absolutely.
yeah. Um, oh, that's great. One thing when John was on, he also talked about thermal audits. I know we've
Yeah.
got a lot of promotion within our own CNI group about thermal audits, and why is Hoffman taking such a big role with that? And what's the value for our customers in
Sure.
those programs?
I think thermal audits, I by far our best time spent selling. And the reason I say this is because there's a problem identified. And you're walking in with already a problem this customer's having with heat, his control systems are freaking out or failing, and he needs an immediate resolution. And I don't know how many thermal audits I've been on or been part of where we go in and we talk to that one piece of machinery. And at the end of it, you look around and there's 20 more pieces of machinery on the shop floor that all potentially are going to have the same problem.
Yeah.
And one air conditioner now just led into 20 air. And I
Yep.
think when the customer sees us walk in the door with tools to measure temperature, calculating heat load, we're providing the solution with minimal effort on the customer. And that really, I think, says a lot to a maintenance team who's like, all right, just get the Hoffman people in here. Let them figure this out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we want to be
Yeah.
because
There's a
that's going
value.
to be the
Yeah.
immediate need order.
Yeah. You're providing that value to the customer in multiple ways. Just taking care of that work, but um, also just in a budgeting, like you said, if you've got 20 things that have a potential issue, a lot of budgets aren't going to replace 20 air conditioners maybe at the same time, but at least you can provide, that information and a schedule, maybe a year to year budget, what to look for. So, yeah, there's a lot of
Absolutely.
value in that. What's different about CBM? First and foremost, it's our ESOP. Employee owners have more control and more ability to make decisions that are right for our customers and right for our company and right for our manufacturers. We've got the flexibility to put people where they need to be and use our experts wisely. If you need help with a project or need representation from an excellent sales force here in the Midwest, look no further than CBM. You can reach out to us here at cbmrep.com. Some of the, hot topics, I guess, if you will, in the industry, AI is one that's just exploding. How does that affect, nVent, Hoffman?
Well, a lot of the AI and tools that we're using are right now being embedded in our other solutions. So, like Salesforce.com, we're exploring how their AI module can help us with identifying more vertical market penetration accounts or finding that synergy amongst the accounts we do well in a vertical market. We do a lot of AI right now in just the Office 365.
Sure.
So that, do a lot of your reporting and data mining. It's a little kind of haunting when you look at what AI can do
Yeah.
and where it's going. And you don't know the limits of it because I don't think there are limits to it.
Yeah.
So we are looking and exploring every avenue of AI. And on the sales side, really more just kind of farming. Where do we find new business? Where do we find verticals that we could potentially grow in and what those accounts look.
Any particular tools that you've seen so far that's made a big impact in the sales team?
Not one particular. I think our Office 365 AI has helped our communications
Yeah.
a lot. But for data mining, there's so many different AI tools. They all contribute about the same.
Okay. How has the actual expansion of all the data centers affected business?
It's huge. It's the hottest area right now to be in, right?
Yeah.
And there's that gray space, white space. And we're lucky enough that we participate in both. And we have more of visibility now with the Avail and the Tracti purchases now that we have e-buildings. Because a lot of that has that AI flavor or micro data center look, or even the incoming power to the data center. But our largest growth engine this year is from the data center, gray space, white space.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that affects everybody in the industry, whether it's power companies or providers like you guys.
Yeah.
What are you seeing in terms of energy storage?
So battery energy storage is a very big focus for us. We have a vertical team that's out looking at that market. We're developing products for that solution, but it's a very quick and changing market. And an example of that would be a lot of right now battery energy storage is containers, your shipping container.
Yeah.
But over the years of that being in shipping containers, we've learned in the industry when one of those battery energy storage facilities catch on fire, the fire department shows up and lets it burn because there's so much chemical environment, acids,
Yeah.
explosion. They don't fight that fire as much as they would in a house fire. So now there's a trend to go to smaller encapsulating cells versus one big huge container full of batteries. So that's where we're seeing a lot of our traction because that really fits our building, our engineered building solutions, as well as our large enclosure product line.
So it leans more into a cabinet style enclosure than a
Yep.
big container. What kind of batteries are they putting in these? Are they
They're
lithium
lithium
or
batteries.
they're lithium?
Yep.
I guess my head turns to like a telephone CO where a lot of those have, the fire mitigation systems built in. Is that not something they can do in the containers?
They are, but it's very expensive.
Okay.
So there's no one fire suppression system right now that's serviced to the top as this is the one that the industry is grabbing their teeth on. So we have 4 or 5 different solutions, but when we offer those to the customers, it seems like it's price prohibitive right now.
Okay. Okay. Now with it seems like so if you've had containers full of batteries and now enclosures, it seems like it's kind of a quickly moving target. Has that been a challenge? Keeping
It's
up
been
with
a
it and
challenge, but it fits our model okay because we have that solution on the container side with our buildings, and then now more modular solution, smaller solution with our enclosure. And because our vertical market team is not bound by brand, they're kind of looking at this as a holistic one nVent solution. They're able to offer those different solutions to the customer.
talk about we had Heather Sethi on earlier, when we first were starting this podcast, and she'd come on and she'd mentioned that, one nVent. Talk about that messaging and the importance of it and how it's actually affected the company overall.
Oh yeah, and one of the biggest impacts we've made was in the contractor world. And if you look at the product lines that both our protection and connections team, protection being Hoffman, and connections would be Caddy, Erico, Aeroflex. Those are a very strong customer base we share that with. And I put together a business development manager who partnered with a caddy business development manager, where we approached the top contractors in the United States and really put some loyalty agreements together with them. And it's proving out that they want this one nVent solution. They want that one point to contact, to talk about projects, be able to supply data. They don't have to go to Joe for enclosures and Andy for bus bar and Tim for ground.
Yeah.
There's one stop shop, and these guys are doing very, very good at getting that one nVent message, and not more importantly the message, but actually acting on it in the field. Where Brandon Hiscock is his name. He's not going to go out and just sell enclosures. He's going to go out and sell grounding and bonding
Yeah.
and all that other good stuff that EFS, Caddy, and ILSCO have. So there's a good opportunity for us to expand on that. So how do we do that at the distributor level and the rep level? So there's a lot of alignment we've got to look at,
Yeah.
change around, maybe build on that will need to happen to really create that one nVent message across all vertical markets, all businesses.
Well, it's great to hear that that's having it. It sounds like it's definitely having a positive impact just internally on the culture. And I look at our small company. We serve 3 different markets. We're kind of broken into a communication, a utility, and a commercial industrial markets. We have 3 different groups, but so much business overlaps those markets, right? And so we've all got to be on the same page, communicating within the groups. Sometimes we may be stepping over dollars to pick up dimes when, if we're not aware of what each of our groups are capable of, right? So,
Right.
we try to send that same message to our team members as well. But it's good to hear that it's making an impact internally for you guys. So,
it's more than just a sales guy in the street. It's really kind of from our upper management down. Our global vice president of sales is responsible for the one nVent messaging, and he is really doing that collaboration. When he has a sales meeting, it's Hoffman, Caddy, Aerocode. So we come together as a team and talk about our one nVent. Then we do our own breakouts to talk about our product specifics, but we're all there. We're all building that relationship. We're all collaborating together.
what can we do at the rep level to help push that movement? What would you say to your reps in terms of that message?
Yeah, I would say the reps that are full line nVent is just get people engaged. Don't be hesitant to talk to the caddy guy about Hoffman or the Hoffman guy about caddy,
Yeah.
and really kind of make them understand that this is all part of the sales cycle. So the ones that aren't are probably going to have a little bit more of an outside looking in, but they can also build those relationships with their caddy partners in the field and do joint type sales efforts and those kind of things.
Yeah, you can. Even if you don't have a full line, you can still make an impact and make those
Absolutely.
connections. Absolutely. You'd said earlier you don't necessarily want to or strive to be a mentor, but talk about. Do you have any mentors that come to mind that have helped you get to where you're at today?
Yeah, Peggy Barada. I've worked for her for 24 years, and she really mentored me. She really, as she grew and she learned, she shared that with me, and she coached me very well. I loved working for her. I think she was one of the smartest women in the industry, and she really understood different levels of people's skill sets, how to adapt to them, how to adapt to the markets, how to go after specific personalities, and really kind of adapt to that and make things happen with them.
Well, that's great. And she when she retired, what, a year or two ago?
December.
December. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I thought I'd heard that. What's a couple of the biggest lessons you've learned with 40 years in the industry?
I never take anything for granted. I don't like counting my eggs before that they're hatched. And just do you think you slam dunked an order? That's the one that you're probably going to get snaked out from under.
Yep. Yeah, we've. I can remember a few conversations with some of our folks too, where somebody's like, "Oh, we got this one, we got this one," and sometimes you want to keep it under your vest just a little bit longer, right?
I
Yep.
got this one when you're holding up the copy of the purchase order. That's what
Absolutely.
I want to see.
Yep, for sure. Um, what have you done recently for your own personal growth?
Oh God, that's a pretty good question. One of the things that I'm really kind of spending a lot more time on is really just trying to looking at different personality sets, reading books on different psychologies, and trying to figure out really how do I motivate a person that I don't really connect with on the same kind of interests, or where do I get that piece of the puzzle connected
Yeah,
where it might not be the guy that would be a person I'd have a beer with on the weekends, right?
yeah. Do you have any answers to that question yet?
I don't. It's all very independent. And when I look at a couple of the personal books that I've read, they're all very adaptable, right? I think when I leave the book, I really feel that you just have to be adaptable. You can't go into a meeting and expect that connection to happen naturally. Some of them will,
Yeah,
but some of them won't. And when you leave the meeting, you really got to evaluate that relationship as much as you want to evaluate the opportunity. Because if you can't develop that relationship, you're not going to be real successful in the opportunity.
yeah. Well, then there's times, I think of several examples where, there's that one guy that's just not on board, and he's
Yep.
part of the team or one of the decision makers, and he's got his favorite whatever, and it usually comes down to that relationships. So you can't always assume that just because you've got a relationship with Bob that Bill's going to be on board.
No, no,
So
not
that
at
can
all.
that can be a challenge sometimes too.
And one of the things you quickly see in this industry is very small. You don't change
Yeah,
faces often. You change business cards.
yeah, he might have a
So
different shirt on, but
exactly.
yeah, I think that's true for most industries. I think they're fairly small knit. Um, but that's for sure. You definitely don't want to burn any bridges.
Never, never.
Yep.
And that we have a lot of uh, nVent has done a great job doing training on different pillars of business. And when we talk about our pillar of integrity, that's our customer first, working with integrity. And that is a mantra that we all follow really well. And we are on top of the table. We're upfront and honest. And I think that's really what gains us our customer loyalty.
Yeah, that's paramount. And your customers can see through that if you're not, right? Integrity,
Absolutely.
just you either have it or you don't, and I think people can smell that a mile away, right?
Oh my God, yeah.
Yep, yep. So, um, we'll kind of wrap up here towards the end of this, but what would be a message you want to deliver, just to our viewers and customers in terms of what's moving forward with Hoffman and nVent?
Yeah, I would say that we are a company that's going to continue our M&A activity. You're going to see more of the one nVent focus. When you see Hoffman, you're going to see nVent, Caddy, Erico, Ilsco. You're also going to see that we are not done making mergers and acquisitions. And that's going to be adding to our portfolio to create a better solution box for the customer. So stay tuned. There's a lot more coming.
Yeah.
There's we're not dead by any means.
I
We're
mean,
just
well,
going to
that's the one
continue to
thing I
build
know
up
about.
stuff.
The one thing I know about you guys is it's always growing. It's always growing.
Absolutely.
Always looking for the next big thing. Where did you play football when you were
I
younger?
played in high school.
You played in high school
Yeah, in Illinois.
in Illinois.
Yeah.
I did not. I played in junior high, 7th and 8th grade, and then didn't play until my senior year in high school. And I just loved it. Had an absolute blast, but I always regretted not playing those other years. But that was great. My best football moment, I'll tell you, was when I was coaching my son in his youth league, and the sixth graders we had a Jets night. Ballard Jets was the program, and they got to play at halftime of one of the football games, and one of my coaches, one of my buddies that we coached with, he had an arm. I mean, he could throw like Brett Favre. He's got a cannon. And so, we'd horse around at practice and run some routes and make some passes. But he had a little trick. He thought he was funny. He would like to overthrow it, just out of your reach, and then he'd yell, give me an effort. And so I'll never forget, we get done playing at halftime, and the kids are running off the field, and he says, Locker, I'll hit you in the corner of the end zone. So here I go on a route to the corner of the end zone, and I know he's going to do it. I can see it coming a mile away, and I just run as fast as I've ever ran. And it was a diving catch right in the corner of the end zone, and I brought it in. The crowd went wild.
There you go.
And
right in front of the bigs.
Right in front
stage.
of everybody. So it was my best football moment ever, and I was, 35 or however old. So.
Oh, I've got so many. One of the things that I was lucky with is the community I live in is a community where I grew up is in a town a lot of people migrated to. So all of a sudden your kids getting youth sports and you're like, hey, what are you doing here? And hey, what are you all of a sudden your high school buddies are there and their kids are in the sports. When we were in the last year of football, 8th grade, my whole coaching staff was my high school buddies.
Yeah, that's fun.
That was awesome.
That's fun. I had there was 4 of us in high school that our dads actually graduated together and we're friends. And then we all had kids in the same class that graduated together as well. So 3 generations, all together. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. But, well, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. Bob, it's been great. I know your time's very valuable, and we appreciate you spending it here with us.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks again, Bob, for joining us today. We know you're a busy man, and we appreciate you spending your time with us today. Thank you so much, and we truly do value our relationship with nVent. Remember, if you need help with a project or need expert representation here in the Midwest, look no further than CBM. You can find us here at cbmrep.com. Please drop us a comment. Let us know what you'd like to see in the future. Like, share, subscribe, all those good things. Thanks for joining us on Power of the Network, and until next time, we'll see you next time.